George tended his roses every morning. Summer, fall, winter, spring. For 47 years, he had cared for this garden. But it had not always been his. It was Martha's garden, his wife. She had planted the first rose bush the day they moved into the house. 52 years ago, a young bride, full of dreams, she said roses were like love. Beautiful, delicate, requiring care. Martha had died 3 years ago. Cancer. George was 81 now. Living alone in the house they had shared. The house where they had raised their children. The house filled with memories. And the garden. Always the garden. Every morning, George would wake at dawn. Make coffee. Walk outside. And tend the roses. Pruning. Watering. Weeding. Talking to them. Talking to Martha. "Good morning, my love," he would say to the pink roses. Martha's favorites. These were doing well. You would be proud. The neighbors thought he was eccentric. An old man talking to flowers. Living in the past. They did not understand. The garden was not just plants. It was Martha. Her hands had touched this soil. Her love had made things grow. And as long as George tended the garden, Martha was still alive. Still present, still with him. But George was getting old. His back ached, his knees hurt, his hands were not as steady as they once were. The garden was becoming too much. Too big, too demanding, but he could not let it go. Could not let Martha's roses die. That would be like losing her all over again. One morning in late spring, George was pruning a yellow rose bush. Martha had called this one sunshine. He reached too far, lost his balance, fell hard. He lay there among the roses, unable to get up, pain shooting through his hip. He called out, but no one heard. The houses were far apart, the neighborhood quiet. George lay there, thinking this might be the end. Dying in Martha's garden. Perhaps that was fitting. Perhaps that was where he was meant to be. Then he heard a voice. A child's voice. "Mister? Are you okay?" George turned his head. A little girl stood at the garden gate. Maybe 9 years old. Dark braids. Big brown eyes. Concerned face. "I fell," George said. "Can you help me up?" The girl came closer. "I am too small, but I can get my mom." "Please," George said. The girl ran. Moments later, she returned with her mother. A woman George had seen moving in a few months ago. The new neighbors. They helped George up. Inside. Called a doctor. "Nothing broken," the doctor said later. "Just bruised. But you need to be more careful. At your age, a fall can be serious." After the doctor left, the little girl was still there. Sitting on George's couch. Her mother had gone home to get dinner started. But the girl had asked to stay. "What is your name?" George asked. "Lily," the girl said. "Thank you for helping me, Lily." "You have a beautiful garden," Lily said. "My mom says it is the prettiest garden in the neighborhood." George felt a lump in his throat. It was my wife's garden. She loved roses. "Where is she?" Lily asked with the innocent directness of children. "She died 3 years ago." "Oh." Lily was quiet for a moment. "That is sad. But her garden is still beautiful. She would be happy about that." George felt tears sting his eyes. "Yes, I think she would. Can I help you with it?" Lily asked. "I like flowers. And you might fall again if you are alone." George looked at the little girl. A stranger. A child. But something in her face reminded him of his granddaughter. Who lived far away. Who he rarely saw. "You would want to help an old man with his garden?" Lily nodded. "I think gardens are magic. And I think your wife must have been magic too. To make something so beautiful." George smiled. "She was magic. You were right about that." And that was how it began. An unlikely friendship. An old widower and a young girl. Connected by roses. By Martha's legacy. By the simple act of tending something beautiful together. The next morning, Lily knocked on George's door. "Ready to garden?" George was surprised. "You really meant it." "I always mean what I say," Lily said seriously. They went into the garden together. George showed Lily the roses. Each bush, each color, each name. Martha had named them all. This is sunrise, George said, pointing to a coral-colored rose. And this is dream. And this one, with the deep red blooms, this is forever. Why forever? Lily asked. Because Martha said our love would last forever. And she wanted a rose to remember that by. Did it? Lily asked. Last forever? George smiled. Yes. Even death could not end it. That is what forever means. They worked together. George teaching, Lily learning how to prune dead blooms, how to water without drowning the roots, how to check for pests, how to feed the soil. Roses are not easy, George explained. They require attention, care, patience. Like relationships, like love, you cannot neglect them. You cannot take them for good. You have to show up every day and do the work. Is that why your wife's garden is so beautiful? Lily asked. Because you show up every day? Yes, George said. That is exactly why. As they worked, George told Lily about Martha. How they met at a dance when they were both 17. How he knew immediately she was the one. How they married young and built a life together. How she wanted children but they struggled. How they finally adopted 2 babies. How those babies grew into adults and moved away. How he and Martha grew old together. How the garden was her refuge, her joy, her art. She would spend hours out here, George said. Hands in the dirt, sun on her face, completely at peace. She said this was her church. This was where she felt closest to God. I think I would have liked her, Lily said. She would have loved you, George replied. She always wanted a granddaughter. We had 2 boys, and they gave us grandsons. She loved them, but she always wished for a little girl to teach, to garden with. Over the following weeks, Lily came every morning. Before school, they would spend an hour in the garden. George teaching, Lily absorbing, not just about roses, but about life. When a rose bush got diseased, George showed Lily how to cut away the sick parts. Sometimes you have to remove what is hurting you, he explained. Even if it hurts to do it. To save the whole plant. When a particularly beautiful bloom appeared, George showed Lily how to photograph it. Capture beauty when you find it, he said. Life is fleeting, but photographs last. Memories last. When a rosebud refused to open, George told Lily to be patient. Some things cannot be rushed, he said. They bloom in their own time. People are like that too. Lily soaked it all up. She was a bright child. Curious, thoughtful. Her own mother worked long hours. Single parent, doing her best. But Lily was often alone. The garden became her refuge. George became her teacher, her friend, her grandfather figure. One day, Lily asked, George, do you still miss Martha? Every day, George said. Every moment. But missing her does not mean I am sad all the time. It means I had something worth missing. Someone worth loving. That is a gift. But is not it hard? Lily asked. To love someone and then lose them? Yes, George admitted. It is the hardest thing. But the alternative is worse. To never love at all. To protect yourself from pain by closing your heart. That is not living. That is just existing. I am scared, Lily said quietly. Of what? Of loving people. Because what if they leave? Like your wife left. Like my dad left. George understood. Lily's father had abandoned the family. Left them struggling. That was why they moved here. Starting over. And Lily was scared. Scared to trust. Scared to love. Scared of loss. George knelt down. Looked Lily in the eyes. Listen to me carefully. Your father leaving was not your fault. And it does not mean love is not real. It means he did not understand what he had. But your mother stayed. She is fighting for you every day. That is love. And me? I am here too. I am not going anywhere. Promise? Lily asked. I promise, George said. As long as I am alive, I will be here. In this garden. With you. Lily hugged him. And George felt something he had not felt in 3 years. Purpose. Connection. Life. Martha's garden was healing him. Just as it was healing Lily. Just as Martha had always believed it could. Summer turned to fall. The roses bloomed their final flush. George and Lily prepared the garden for winter. Mulching, pruning, protecting. One October morning, a storm came. Unexpected, violent. George woke to wind howling and rain lashing the windows. He looked outside. His heart sank. The roses, they would be destroyed. He tried to go out to save them, but his son called, "Dad, do not go outside. The storm is dangerous. The roses will survive." But George could not stop worrying. Martha's roses, his connection to her. He stood at the window, watching, helpless. When the storm finally passed, George went outside. The damage was devastating. Branches broken, blooms torn off. One of the oldest bushes, forever, had been uprooted. Lying on its side, roots exposed. George stood there, staring, feeling like he was losing Martha all over again. Forever was dying. The rose that represented their eternal love. Dying. He heard footsteps. Turned. Lily stood there, her mother beside her. "Oh no," Lily whispered. Forever. George could not speak, could not move. The grief was overwhelming. Lily's mother, Sarah, approached. "Mr. George, I am so sorry. Is there anything we can do?" "It is too late," George said. "The roots are too damaged. Forever is gone." But Lily was not listening. She ran to the house, came back with a shovel. Too big for her, but she was determined. "We have to try," she said. "We have to replant it. Martha would want us to try." "Lily," George said gently. "It is too damaged. You taught me," Lily said fiercely. "You taught me that roses are tough. That they survive. That love survives. We have to try." George looked at the little girl. So fierce, so determined, and he realized she was right. Martha would want them to try. To fight, to not give up. "Okay," George said, "we will try." They worked together. George, Lily, Sarah, digging, replanting, watering, staking, protecting. They worked for hours, until forever was upright again. Secured, given a chance. "Now we wait," George said. "And we hope." For weeks, forever looked dead. No new growth, leaves falling off. George checked it every day, hoping, praying, but nothing changed. Then, in late November, Lily came running. "George, George, look." She dragged him to the garden, pointed at forever. There, at the base, was a small green shoot. New growth, life. "It is going to make it," Lily said, tears in her eyes. "Forever is going to survive." George felt his own tears falling. Yes, it is going to survive. Just like Martha said. Forever. That night, George sat in his house, looking at a photo of Martha. And he understood. The storm had not destroyed forever. It had tested it, and it had survived. Just like their love had survived. Just like George was surviving. With help, with care, with hope. "Martha," he whispered to the photograph. "You were right. Love survives everything. Even storms. Even death. Forever." Spring came. George's 82nd birthday. He woke early, made coffee, walked into the garden, and stopped. Forever was covered in blooms. More than ever before. Deep red roses. Dozens of them. Beautiful. Triumphant. The rose that had nearly died was now thriving. Exploding with life. George stood there, crying. "Thank you, Martha," he whispered. "Thank you for this." Lily arrived moments later. "Oh my gosh," she breathed. "Forever is amazing." "Yes," George said. "It is." They worked in the garden that morning. Lily was 10 now. Taller, more skilled. She could prune like a professional. Could identify diseases. Could care for the roses almost as well as George. "You are a natural," George told her. Martha would be so proud. "I wish I could have met her," Lily said. "You have," George replied. "Every time you touch these roses. Every time you tend this garden. You are meeting her. You are continuing her work. That is what legacy means." Later that day, Lily's mother came over. "George, I need to tell you something. I got a promotion. We are moving to another state." George felt his heart sink. "When?" 6 weeks. George forced a smile. That is wonderful. You deserve it. But Lily does not want to go, Sarah said. She is heartbroken about leaving the garden. About leaving you. George understood. But she has to go. You are her mother. She needs you. The garden will be here. That night, Lily came to George, crying, I do not want to leave. I do not want to lose you like you lost Martha. George held her. You are not losing me. And I am not losing you. Because love does not end when distance comes. It just changes. But who will take care of the roses? Lily asked. I will, George said. For as long as I can. And when I cannot, someone else will. Martha's garden has survived 52 years. It will survive longer. Can I take one? Lily asked. A cutting from forever? So I can plant it in our new home? George smiled. Martha would love that. Yes. Take a cutting. Plant it. Tend it. And every time you see it bloom, remember us. Remember this garden. Remember that love never dies. On Lily's last day, they took a cutting from forever. Carefully, lovingly, George wrapped it in damp paper. Gave it to Lily. Plant this in your new home, George said. It will take root. It will grow. And in a few years, it will bloom. And when it does, you will remember. You will remember Martha. You will remember me. You will remember that love lasts forever. Lily hugged him. I will never forget you, George. And I will never forget you, George replied. You saved me, Lily. When I was drowning in grief, you gave me purpose again. You reminded me why Martha loved this garden. Why she loved life. Because of children like you. Because of hope. Because of the future. Lily left. George stood in the garden. Alone again. But not lonely. Because he understood now. Martha's garden was not just for him. It was for everyone. For anyone who needed beauty. Hope. Connection. 2 years later, George received a letter. From Lily. With a photograph. Forever's cutting. Now a full bush. Covered in red blooms. Thriving in Lily's new garden. The letter said, Dear George. Forever survived the move. Just like you said it would. It bloomed this spring. And I remembered everything you taught me. About roses. About love. About showing up every day. I am starting a garden club at my school. Teaching other kids. Passing on what you taught me. Martha's legacy continues. Thank you for everything. Love, Lily. George stood in his garden. Reading the letter. Tears streaming down his face. Martha, he whispered. Our roses are spreading. Our love is spreading. Just like you always hoped. George continued tending the garden. Every morning. For 2 more years. Until, at 84, his body gave out. He died peacefully. In his sleep. On a beautiful spring morning when the roses were in full bloom. At his funeral, Lily came. Now 13. She brought a rose from forever. The cutting George had given her. She placed it on his casket. Thank you, George, she whispered. For teaching me. For loving me. For showing me that grief does not have to be the end. That beauty can grow from loss. That love really does last forever. George's children decided to keep the house. To maintain Martha's garden, they hired a landscaper. But more importantly, they opened the garden to the neighborhood. Let children come. Let them learn. Let them connect with nature and beauty and life. And every spring, Lily comes back. To visit. To tend the roses. To remember George. To remember Martha. To teach the new children what George taught her. Because that is what gardens do. They grow. They spread. They continue. Long after the gardeners are gone. Martha's roses bloom every year. In George's garden. In Lily's garden. In gardens around the country planted by people who learned from Lily. The legacy continues. Because love never dies. It just transforms. From 2 people. To a garden. To a community. To a movement. Martha and George's love, represented by red roses called forever, blooms eternally. And somewhere, George and Martha walk together again. Hand in hand. Through an eternal garden. Where the roses never fade. Where love never ends. Where forever really means forever.